Hello everybody, my name is Chris Nurse and I'm the creator of an open source project called QikTrak, which enables us to rapidly configure Hasura. I was recently announced as a Hasura community champion, and I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to help to support the global community, and also I'm very thankful for this opportunity today to tell you about my open source project. My career spans around 46 years, so I don't have time to bore you with all of that immense detail. In 1978, my dad, who was in a band as a bass player, also hand-built the first computer that I ever learned to code on. Dad literally launched my technology career, and he also gave me a passion for music, as I also took up guitar as well while I was quite young. Anyway, fast forward through many years. In the 80s and 90s, I was a Unix system admin, used to code in C, C++. In the 2000s, I was in consulting and ran a research and development company in Spain. And then I arrived in Australia around about 2002 and helped to build 3 IT consultancies here. The pinnacle of my career, though, I feel, is in 2014. I was given the role of Chief Technology Officer for the Telethon Kids Institute. Telethon Kids is one of the most recognised child health research organisations in Australia. When I finished my project there, I was named as one of Australia's top 50 technology leaders, so I was very proud of that. Fast forward to today. This year I just took a new role as Chief Technology Officer in Chrysalis, and in Chrysalis we're really seeking to help startups in the medical device, medical research field get through a phase of rapid growth. So we're very excited to have several projects underway this year that really focus on people's health and well-being and support clinicians and researchers to work faster and smarter than ever before. So what is QikTrak, and why should you even care that it exists? To answer that question, I need to tell you a very quick story. Once upon a time, there's a handsome prince, and he has a princess that wants him to build a castle. So he needs some kind of design, he needs to clear some space, gather all the materials together, and then get the foundations laid down, build the thing, and then ultimately one day the project is going to be done. That's not unlike building some kind of app, or in my case, I often build prototypes as quick as possible. And I use containers, I use databases, I have a data model to tell me what kind of information I'm working with. And there's some kind of configuration that sits across all of that. And then I start building the prototype, and at some point I can hand that off to a development team. And what helps me go faster is the fact that I can choose all of these off-the-shelf technologies. Docker for our containers, Postgres database, have a SQL schema that dictates my data model, and then Hasura, and in particular its console, so I can start, creating tables and building this GraphQL configuration. But that starts to get painful when you have to iterate hundreds of times when people change their minds or want to push the prototype in different ways and add and delete tables and all that kind of stuff. So what we really need is as many tools as possible to help us automate. And of course, there are lots of tools around that help us automate different things. And QikTrak is the clue as to what QikTrak actually does. It lets you very quickly set up all of the tracking in Hasura in a consistent way. But you're probably already saying, hey, Hasura already does setup tracking and it's pretty quick. I think it's like a couple of clicks, right? Okay. So to get started, we basically need to pull the QikTrak repository from GitHub. And then the first couple of things that we're going to see is that there's an example database, and in there's a script to create the database and another script to insert some test data. So in order to have a database in the first place, we need something that will create the database and also give us an instance of Hasura. So let's run this npm command down here that starts up the back end. Okay, so that's now good to go. So here's Hasura. We can assume in the background that Postgres is running because Hasura is connected to it. So the next thing we need to do is clean this up and get our database creation script. We'll run the database creation script, but we won't track it. Let's just say run. Clear that away. And now seed the example data and run that. So when we look at our data model now, there's a membership schema that's been created, and in there are quite a few tables that help us create a database for a membership management organization. So membership organizations have members, and typically those members are in groups, and they have some kind of status like active or cancelled, and some kind of role like normal member or group leader, something like that. So in 2 clicks, we can just say to Hasura, yes, please track all of my tables, all of my relationships. So that now I can go back and start my first query, which will be using membership groups. So when we look at our groups, they have 2 groups, one called Group 1, which is in Western Australia, one called Group 2, which is in New South Wales. Now, who are the members in each of these groups? Okay, so we can see Jack, Jill and Barry are in Group 1 in Western Australia, and Sheila, Angela and Ben are in Group 2 in New South Wales. Now, one of these members in each group is appointed as a leader. And I know that because when I look at my membership groups, I can see that there's this leader ID. So it should be pretty easy to say who is the leader. And no, I can't, because it's actually showing me the native column in the database. What's actually happened is because the leader is a member, by default the tracking has been set up to use an attribute name, if you like, of member rather than leader. So if we just assume we've got member here for a moment, so we know that this leader is Jack for Group 1, and we know it's Sheila for Group 2. So our tracking information isn't intuitive. I'm thinking as a business person who helps this membership organization. I know I've got groups, I know I've got members, and I've got leaders, but somehow I can't see them in my data model. So this is where QikTrak comes in. All we need to do now that we've got the backend running is to run this QikTrak CLI, and what it will do is it will pause for a few moments just to make sure that the database is up and running and that GraphQL and Hasura are all available. Because imagine you've done this as part of a Docker Compose. These things happen so quick. One step of the setup process has to wait for the previous one to complete. So let's just crawl through this bit by bit. So QikTrak ran. We saw that it connected to a database called QikTrak and a schema called membership. That's in its configuration. We know it talks to Hasura GraphQL on port 7123. And we're telling it that our preferred standard in our database is that primary keys end with _ID. So now it's super easy for it to know how to build relationships with logical names so that leader ID can be a relationship called leader simply by removing this _ID from the end. So what QikTrak did also is remove all of the old tracking information that was in place, either by you doing that manually or Hasura doing it automatically for us. It just gets removed. And then after using the database creation script and the database seed script, it's built the database, populated it with data, goes through and then tracks the tables, which is pretty standard, but it hasn't put the schema name on the table name, so it's a little bit more intuitive and efficient in that sense. And then it goes through and it adds all of the relationships. So let's have a look at what that looks like in Hasura console. So first thing that we realize is that membership groups is now just called groups, and this member can now be called the leader. So when we run the same query now, we've got all of our data, and I can clearly see my leader is Jack. I don't have to kind of reinterpret or remember somehow. And I don't have to use aliasing. So we could have called members, we could have said to GraphQL, please rename that field for us as leader. So as you can see, in just one simple step, we can use QikTrak to run our database creation script, populate the database with data, and then automatically set up all of the tracking with completely intuitive names that are guided by the names of things in our database. I think what I'm going to do is wrap up there. Really, I think it's up to the community now to give us more guidance on QikTrak. Is it just something that's useful in a prototyping context? Is it really useful when you're working in teams where technologies are already selected and now we've got a standardized approach to introducing GraphQL against our backend databases and so on? I really would love your feedback, so please do provide lots of comments, and I'm sure we'll keep improving QikTrak in the months ahead of us. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Bye bye.